Endure and survive, and welcome everybody to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast. In this episode, we will give you our review for episode 6, now streaming on HBO Max. Dylan, what an amazing episode. What a great adaptation from the game. And I think they added so much, as always, they're adding so much to this series. But let's get started with your thoughts.
Another jeer-turker, as you say.
Jeer-turker.
Very emotional, yeah. I definitely teared up at some points in this episode, and mainly due to Pedro's performance in this episode. I think he really delivered it, and Ellie as well. Bella Ramsey definitely delivered a heartfelt performance in this episode. But yeah, we see that Joel has finally reconnected with Tommy in this episode. But it kind of doesn't go according to how he wanted it to go. But yeah, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, so we get scenes of so it takes place 3 months later after Henry and Sam, and we do get a little flashback of that, and I think that was good to show because it shows now that Joel is a little bit more worn out. So he's washed with emotions, and he's starting for the first time in his life to feel this fear. Right, he had to be this hard shell for most of his life, and now that he sees a new potential daughter, he gets flashbacks of Sarah. He can't even remember his dreams, and I think that Pedro Pascal nailed some of the emotional scenes in this episode. It was amazing. And yeah, I think I was so glad to see a faithful recreation of Jackson. My goodness, it looks exactly like from The Last of Us Part 2. And I love Gabriel Luna's portrayal of Tommy, just the voice and everything. And I think that, he feels guilty that Sarah passed away, but he also wants to move on with his life. He's his own man, he's taking care of things, and he wants to do right because he did so much wrong, as everyone did. But what else do you got for us?
Yeah, it was cool seeing Jackson and... Well, firstly, that whole scene where they're like riding on the horses, and then they stop Joel and Ellie, and like you said, Joel kind of like panics and has this fear. And over the episode, we see that he's kind of having like panic attacks. It's kind of like wearing him down, and the emotional trauma of everybody that he's lost kind of like weighs in on him, which we'll touch on later. But yeah, and then we see, of course, he has a reconnection with Tommy, and I think that whole scene with them like having a drink, I think Joel had this kind of like fantasy that like once he found Tommy, things were gonna return like the way they were before. But as we see, like you mentioned, like Tommy wants to move on, he wants to redeem himself for like his past, and now he has a family. He has a wife, Maria, and they have a baby on the way. And I think that kind of scared Joel, and it maybe brought up some insecurities in Joel. Maybe he felt like, I don't know, like that Tommy was kind of like moving away from him.
Yeah.
Or like he was losing his only family, especially since he just lost Tess and Bill and Frank too. I think that kind of hit him hard that, now he's losing his brother, who's his only family real left. And yeah, he tells Tommy about Ellie and why she's so important to him, and that they have to get her to the Fireflies. And he asks Tommy a favor to bring her to the Firefly Blaze. And that whole scene where he broke down, God, I my tear ducts were just like sweating. Like, it was so good, man. Like Pedro, like he really knows how to like deliver such a melancholy performance. But yeah, what did you think of that scene?
Yes, it seemed like a broken man. It just got to him. It was too much, and to see Tommy, that's his brother at the end of the day, and he has to sympathize somehow with Joel, and but he had to also be strong, right? He's the stronger brother now, the more composed brother, and it seems like, so much is being ripped away from Joel that, he even has to lie about Tess. He just doesn't want to speak about it. If you mention Sarah's name, like he can't handle it, do not. But I think the more you strip away that hard exterior, underneath the mid layer can be Joel's reaction right now. But I'm glad later on in the episode we get to see, but there's happiness. There's happiness, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And the whole scene was beautiful. and he got a new pair of shoes to walk his new journey. Right, this is new for him, and I think it's really beautiful. I think they captured something, the beautifulness from the game, and he put it in this episode. And it's interesting. Everyone's panicking, saying that this maybe is going to be too fast, a little bit rushed. I think the pacing is wonderful. I think they handled it really well. And also, I want to say kudos to Ratina Wesley. I knew her from True Blood, and I think she plays an excellent Maria. Very strong character, and I love the little convo she had with Ellie. That was so like,
yeah, Ellie can hold her own in a conversation. Like, we definitely see she's very mature for her age.
Yeah,
she realizes things around her, and in this episode we see her becoming more independent, which will play a big role probably in the future of this season, as we see at the end of the episode. But yeah, I rewatched some clips of the game and how they kind of recreated that scene in this episode.
Yeah,
where Joel kind of has a heart-to-heart with Ellie, and Ellie's like, I'm not your daughter. I thought that was so well done, and they didn't change much, but it was the way that they delivered it. It just felt so genuine, and it kind of felt still unique in their own way. But I know you've played the game, so I wanted your reaction on that scene.
Yeah, they owned it. I remember they said do not play the game or something like that, and so it's their version of it, but it's still just as beautiful and just as iconic and just as tragic as well. You could tell they really felt the emotions and the pressure during that scene, and I think it was a great build up too. In the game, there wasn't like such a build up for Joel saying that, but in the show, there was like a big build up. There was emotions running high, and so the way how he said it, I think, made more sense than it did in the game. And Ellie, I felt really bad for Ellie as well, but I mean, later on, at least in the episode, we get this resolution of this little conflict that they had, where, again, Tommy now is he agrees to take Ellie to the Fireflies in the campus. Apparently, he's stronger. But Joel changed his mind. And so Tommy and Ellie met Joel at the pen. And I love that scene where, like, this is your choice, Ellie, or whatever. And she says, I'm coming with you, as she gives him the bag. It was like instant, right? And in the game, that scene happened. And then when they were riding back to Jackson, you could tell that, okay, they had time to think, and Joel had a change of heart. And he was like, okay, I'm gonna do the journey. I'm gonna continue the journey. And so I just love that he did it there, because from then on out, it's like, okay, this is now going to be a true father and daughter dynamic. And so it was so cool seeing him smile, even a little ride in the campus, like the talk about college experience and football.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they named the episode Kin, and it's funny because like it feels like Joel, now he's leaving his old family behind, which is Tommy, and now he's kind of gathered this new family in Ellie, and it just like their bond seems like inseparable now. It seems like their destinies are kind of like intertwined, because now that he's found Tommy, that was his goal. The whole first half of the show was just to find Tommy, but since it didn't seem like it worked out, the only thing he has left really is this 14-year-old girl. And I think now their relationship has kind of strengthened over this episode. We definitely see them, like, Joel is being a lot more open and casual, and he's talking more. And of course, I love when like Ellie like asks questions about like the past and stuff. It's so cool to see, like, even like when she's like reading like the diary of some girl, and she's like, oh, this is really how it was back then. Because like I said before, like this world is what all she knows, right? She doesn't know what life was back then. So Joel is kind of like the window to the past for her, and it's cool to see like them talking. But yeah, so we see them on this journey, and he's kind of like teaching her skills along the way. It was cool. Like he was teaching her finally how to shoot a gun, and they have like a cool exchange. And then, you know, they're riding this horse, and it was kind of cool because like it was like a Western, like they're riding into the sunset kind of. But so we reached the campus of the Fireflies, which was their base, and it looked like they had evacuated, or they were like out in a rush or something. And then Joel is kind of like I think he's attacked by this raider, and he's stabbed, unfortunately, and then he kind of falls into a coma, and then Ellie, I thought it was beautifully done. How she said it, she was like, "I can't do this without you, Joel." So what'd you think of that whole scene?
Oh yeah, well, it was very different from the game, but I think they accomplished the same thing, and it was a lot more poignant, especially that line that she delivered. And I think next episode's Left Behind, the DLC, showing how she got bit. But I think after that, we're going to see her taking care of Joel. And it's going to be really hard for her, right? She has to get on a bike without training wheels and really figure out how to hunt and become an efficient killer and how to be cautious. And so it's going to be, and she's in for a surprise. I think people who haven't played the game are in for a surprise. When we get to see that, at least we get to see the original actor from Joel, Troy Baker. He's going to make an appearance. I cannot wait for that. But it just shows you that she, everybody has something in common, right? She, like, that relationship is kind of the same like Henry and Sam. Like, Sam had to rely on Henry because he was death. And then I think when it comes to it and she has to be angry and she has to defend herself and make sure there's no more threats, I think she's going to have a lot in common with Kathleen even. Beautiful scene. It was beautifully done. I wish, for people who haven't played the game, the reason why the Fireflies weren't there, it was because they were doing experiments on the monkeys with the cordyceps virus. So those monkeys are infected with the cordyceps virus, and so if they bite you, you're done. And so I think that's exactly what happened in the game, and that's why there were some infected in university. We didn't get to see that here, but that's why the Fireflies left. It's like a lost cause. This guy's saying, "Oh, the monkey bit me," and so one of the head people there basically dies.
Always
kills
a damn
himself.
monkey that starts everything.
It's like 28 days, right? I also think that's a good, probably a good reference to 28 Days, because 28 Days is so influential in the gritty realism genre. Okay, but now I want to know what are your final thoughts and also your rating for this episode.
Another great episode as always. I mean, this one was, I'd say, on the lower tier. I mean, obviously episode 5 and episode 3 were genuine standouts of this series so far. So, but it was still a great episode in terms of like dialogue and exposition. I think it really strengthened the chemistry between Joel and Ellie. I think it's important that we establish that in this series. So yeah, honestly, I'd have to rate this a 9 out of 10, but I want to know your rating and what you will predict for the future of this.
Yeah, so for sure, you know me, guys, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards The Last of Us. I love this game, my favorite game. I would give this a 10 out of 10 just because it made me feel really different. I really felt for Joel in this episode. I felt like a cheer-durker as well in certain scenes. And I think they did a great job with dropping so many references to the next game. And of course, Last of Us Part 2 is a hard pill to swallow for many people. So I think that's why they're introducing some things and some actions along the way that Joel will do. I think they foreshadowed brilliantly in this episode. I think it will all come to a head basically in episode 9. So I think this is just a precipice, something like that. You guys know I mess up my words all the time. But yeah, I definitely would give this a 10 out of 10. And again, next episode 7, we're going to review that Sunday. That's going to be Left Behind, where Ellie, it's a flashback where Ellie gets bit and we get to see her love interest, Riley. But everybody, that is our review for episode 6 of The Last of Us. Again, now streaming on HBO Max. If you made it to the end of this video, please remember to like and share. It would greatly help us out. And check out our other reviews as well from The Last of Us. If you're new to the channel, again, we do weekly reviews on many of your favorite stuff. And we have plenty of stuff coming in the future. So Dylan, as always, take us away.
Yeah, thank you guys again for tuning in for this review. If you're not following us already, please do. We're on YouTube, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as well. And you can check out our social links on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as well. Also, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friend Jerome, aka Black Phoenix. His birthday's tomorrow, so happy birthday, bro.
Happy birthday.
But yeah, thanks again, guys. And until then, endure and survive.
Endure and survive. See you guys.